Donald Trump is on the run. And not just from Washington, from accountability, or from a press corps that's finally willing to confront him about Jeffrey Epstein. He's running from everything. He no longer has any real safe havens left. Fox News, his longtime propaganda sanctuary, has now been forced to cover Epstein. Republicans in Congress are openly discussing it. And even Trump's favorite personal hangouts aren't safe for him anymore, because he knows he'll be met with loud, humiliating boos. We're going to break down exactly why Trump abruptly canceled an event at the place he loves most. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It really helps support the work we do here. Now, before we dive into Trump's sudden cancellation and what it signals about the unraveling of his presidency, I want to start with the latest updates on how MAGA is turning on him. Here's Ari Melber with the breakdown.
Even if he doesn't have something to hide, is charitable. But he does have something to hide. He's in the Epstein files. He's in Epstein's secret emails to a convicted sex trafficker, Maxwell, to Steve Bannon. People are getting more details on those as everyone pours through what is 20,000 documents. Some of them are quite interesting. Some of them are random. Some of them, the House release involves public information like pages from a book. So you go through all this in the reporting process. But he clearly has something to hide because he's been fighting even this disclosure, which shows he's in the files. And he's fighting the next possible disclosure, which suggests he's in the files again. As for Maxwell, she has the audacity, or the sex trafficking chutzpah, to use this period to prepare to ask Trump to let her out of prison. Something that would seem unthinkable unless you think, again, he would rather take the hit for that to maintain her as some sort of non-credible source to defend him. Unlike other prisoners, Maxwell already reportedly gets unlimited supplies, special treatment, quote, customized meals personally delivered to her cell, a private exercise area, access to this much maligned service puppy. She says it's safer and more comfortable. I feel like I've dropped through Alice in Wonderland looking glass. I'm much happier and safe, is her statement on the matter. Trump said he would not rule out freeing her. Think about that. He's on the run. He's in the files. And now, having campaigned on both transparency of releasing the files and justice and saying this whole pedophilia ring was a bad thing, he is now still leaving the door open to freeing from prison the only individual ever incarcerated for Epstein's related crimes. Now, we've heard so many lectures about how nothing changes and Trump has loyalty and he likes to tell people he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and get away with it. Well, that may not be true either. There are some problems, legal and otherwise, that Trump's base has excused. But right now, I showed you the Wall Street Journal, I showed you the Republicans in the House who overrode Trump's strategy here of secrecy, and other members of the MAGA base are upset. Newsweek reports on the threat to the Trump presidency now looks unlike anything we've seen before, and over across the whole country, his approval is cratering, MAGA loyalists concerned.
Across the Republican Party, there are calls for more disclosure.
The government will not protect the predators.
There is just nobody in the electorate who is buying this. Trump could one-up him and say, well,
while it is not just Republicans in Congress, it certainly is Republicans in Congress who are turning on Donald Trump. But they're not just doing it because they have some moral obligation. Do you think Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing anything out of the goodness of her heart because she cares about the people? This is all a political calculation. When her and Trump were going back and forth on Truth Social and Twitter last night, Donald Trump said, the reason Marjorie Taylor Greene has been spiraling out of control, and it's what AOC said, and it's what I've said, is because he didn't give her his endorsement for Senate or governor in Georgia. And so Marjorie Taylor Greene has now made a political calculation, which I think is honestly a smart one to start breaking with a MAGA movement led by Donald Trump that is going down. The things are falling apart, and Donald Trump understands that. Marjorie Taylor Greene understands that the base is furious about Epstein, and that, of course, when Donald Trump goes out in public, the public hates him. But when he goes to a sporting event, it's the best way to gauge gauge the temperature of how people are feeling right now. And the last time he did, of course, he was booed miserably. But where is the place that Donald Trump usually gets the standing ovation? He gets to pretend like he's the tough guy. He does the dance. He tries to flex the fake muscles. Where is that? The UFC with his buddy Dana White. That is where Donald Trump can always get a crowd to cheer for him, which is why this news shows how bad Donald Trump knows it is right now with MAGA. The Twitter account ACDMMA says Donald Trump will not be in attendance at UFC 322 this Saturday, per Dana White. It's the first UFC event he has missed in New York since 2022. The first UFC fight he has missed since 2022 in New York City. Now, why would that be? Why would Trump suddenly back out? The UFC crowd has always leaned heavily pro-Trump. It's the manosphere audience, a group of mostly men who voted for him in huge numbers, even in blue cities, because UFC events bring fans from all over the country. So why skip this one? Early in his presidency, he showed up with Pam Bandy, Kash Patel, Tulsi Gabbard, Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, even Speaker Mike Johnson. He made these appearances constantly. They were a core part of his brand, a way to get roaring applause from a devoted base, high fives from fans, and the illusion of being a normal, popular public figure. He used UFC crowds to help rehabilitate his image after 4 years of chaos. After an administration marked by division, after a disastrous pandemic response, after spreading misinformation through his movement, and after January 6th. And obviously, he's close with Dana White, who spoke for him at the last RNC. Dana has always made sure Trump gets VIP treatment. But now? Those same UFC fighters and influencers who once boosted him, the same ones who hyped him, gave him honorary belts and treated him like a hero, are openly turning away. Many of them are furious over the Epstein file controversy, the state of the economy, Trump's clear cognitive struggles, and what they see as him abandoning the people who supported him. To them, he's losing credibility. It's wild it took this long for that crowd, including Joe Rogan, who shaped so much of the UFC audience, to reach this point. But the fact that they have is huge. UFC is no longer a safe space for Trump. It's no longer a guaranteed applause line. It's no longer a place for him to feel cheered, supported, or protected. There are no more automatic wins for Trump. Not from Marjorie Taylor Greene, not from Lauren Boebert, not from Fox News, and now not from UFC either. Trump canceling this appearance is a big deal. It signals that he knows showing up would continue the avalanche of public humiliation he's faced over the last week and a half. Humiliation that began with a devastating election night setback last Tuesday. If Senate Democrats hadn't caved on certain issues, the momentum might be even stronger. But that's a conversation for another time. For all his blunders, Trump does understand one thing: optics. He knows how this looks. He knows how the public reaction affects him, and he knows he can only get loudly booed so many times in a single week before the embarrassment becomes impossible to spin. This cancellation marks a real fracture in the MAGA movement. When Trump is too afraid to stand in front of a crowd that once worshipped him, that is a major shift. And if you need something positive amid all this, just look at Trump's panic. Something Chris Murphy also summed up perfectly right here.
He is in daily panic mode as we get closer to the moment where these files and the fullest truth that we have available to us is going to be made public. And it is clearly the biggest scandal in presidential history. And he wouldn't be acting this way if he wasn't so deeply worried about what sits in those files. What we've already seen is immensely incriminating. Clearly, Donald Trump was at the center of a child sex ring. That is heartbreaking, that the President of the United States was involved in that kind of gross, craven, immorality. And it stands to reason that he wouldn't be fighting so hard to spin against this story or bullying Republicans in the House to prevent the release of these files if there wasn't something especially and specifically incriminating in that information. Now, I think the scandal in and of itself could bring him down, but we also do have to contextualize it, because what Donald Trump is all about is protecting the rich and powerful and stealing from normal people, regular middle class and poor folks, in order to enrich the rich and powerful. And this is very much part of that story. Yes, I am sure that there are both Republicans and Democrats named in those files. There are powerful people on both sides of the aisle. But what Trump is all about is, not really playing a game based on politics, but playing a game based on wealth and influence. If you have wealth and influence, Donald Trump is going to protect you. And that is consistent through everything he has done during the first 9 months of this administration.
He realizes this marks the beginning of the end, and it's only going to get worse for him if people keep applying pressure. As I mentioned yesterday, the only reason the Epstein documents have stayed in the public conversation this long is because of the internet, not traditional media. People have always said Twitter isn't real life, yet it was posts on X, including Elon Musk's comments, that reignited the conversation. Pam Bondi's report did the same. Platforms like Twitter, YouTube, podcasts, TikTok, Instagram, and independent outlets kept the story alive and pushed a mainstream media that had mostly ignored it to finally start asking real questions, rattling Trump, and keeping the issue in the spotlight. And it will continue because of all of us. We're the ones demanding answers, pushing for accountability, and refusing to let this story fade. I promise that on this channel, we'll keep raising these questions every day. We'll keep challenging this administration. We'll keep pushing legacy media to do its job. And that's only possible because of your support. If you'd like to support even more, make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and if you've made it to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I will see you soon.